Hey, we're hanging out with, well, let me see if I can list all of the things now. Comedian, host of that metal show on VH1 Classic. You have a podcast. You're a Metal Blade recording artist. And, of course, an Emmy winner, Mr. Jim Florentine.
And I'm in a movie, too.
To have you. Oh, that's right. And then the movie as well. Wow. I
A Little Help.
forgot about that. That's right. A Little Help.
Yeah.
With Jenna Fisher. Nice.
Chris O'Donnell.
So, soon to be award-winning actor now as well.
Well, I mean, the role I had in that film was to play like the jerk boyfriend. So,
Perfect.
Yeah, I could probably win an Emmy.
It was
for
a
that.
stretch.
There was no research. I didn't have to go look at someone's relationship. I didn't have to read a book. I didn't have to go watch another movie where a guy was a jerk. I'm like, no problem.
Simple and easy.
Whatever I did yesterday, I can bring into this film.
Wow. Well, we are honored to have you here.
Thank you.
And you're here not just for your health and to list all your accomplishments, but you actually have a CD, DVD coming out called Cringe and Purge. That sounds familiar. Why is that?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not really sure either.
Because of Metallica Binge and Purge?
I didn't do much of my research.
Is it because of Metallica Binge and Purge box set that they released back in the day?
Metallica, I'm not that familiar with them, but yeah, maybe. That might possibly be it.
But you know what? It wasn't. I didn't even think of that when I did it, when I thought of the album title.
Are you serious?
I swear to God,
really?
I didn't, because
lately,
what's happening is now any comedian that is a little edgy, they're calling them a cringe comic. That their jokes are, you go, ooh, like that. So all of a sudden I'm labeled as a cringe comic. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go with it. So Cringe and Purge. So you want to cringe at my joke, fine. Then throw up, and I got another one for you. So that was the idea for the album. And then everyone was like, oh, like Metallica, Binge and Purge. I'm like, oh, you know what, I didn't even think about that, but that's cool.
Probably the back of your mind, being
maybe
a metalhead, you might have had it in.
Maybe, but this is a whole thing, because now comedians are getting in trouble, and you know what they say on stage, and there's this whole censorship thing going on.
That's true. Wow.
So now, like any guys that has a little edge that throws some edgy jokes out there, they're really like, oh, we're put in the category now. Meanwhile, I've been doing, like Gilbert Gottfried, when he got in trouble for making those jokes about Japan, that guy's been doing those kind of jokes for 30 years.
Yeah, and just now they figure out.
Just now they figure out. If you ever heard him on the Howard Stern show or even saw a stand-up act, that's what he does. So now all of a sudden he gets in trouble for doing what he's been doing every day. It's so weird.
Yeah, well, as a comedian now, I mean, look, obviously, you're on a label that's not going to censor you whatsoever.
I love that.
But do you think about that stuff when you're doing stuff, or does it matter?
No, I don't think about it. But this album is pretty vicious. It's very politically incorrect, and I'm like, good. I'm going the other way. I'm not softening up because everybody else is softening up. I'll go further. Just as a metal band. Oh, really? You thought I was too heavy? Well, I'm going to go heavier this next record. So that's what I want to do, because I'm not apologizing for anything. It's like the comedy stage in a club is the last place you're allowed to hear inappropriate stuff. That stage has been like that for years. Richard Pryor, Lenny Bruce, everybody that's gone up, George Carlin. That's the place where you laugh at inappropriate stuff. You can't take that away from us. And people are like, yeah, but Tracy Morgan said he would stab his son if he was gay. How is that funny? I'm like, he's riffing on stage. If you take any piece of anybody's act out, they're going to go, that's terrible if you take a little piece of it. That's what stand-up is. In
the immortal words of David Letterman, it's just a joke.
It's just a joke. He's really not going to do that.
Yeah, you
think?
He's
really not going to stab his son. And everyone's saying, well, gay people have been beat up for years and picked on. Okay, fine. But do you really think somebody's going to listen to Tracy Morgan? Because that's what they think, that because he says it, then if someone has a gay son, I'm going to listen to Tracy Morgan's joke and stab my son to death, too.
Yeah, he's definitely the spokesperson for all
this stuff, right? The guy can't even make a sentence. And people really think that, hey, I'd say comedians and male comics go up, they go, man, if I can kill my wife, I would if I can get away with it. Like, that's a joke. And female comics go, man, I'd love to just kill my husband and whatever and bury him in the backyard. And it's funny. Are people in the crowd going, that's a good idea?
Somebody's like, hey.
That comedian said he wished he could kill his wife. I'm going to do that because I'm going to listen to that guy.
But that also goes back to all the lyrics and all the censorship that Judas Priest and everything went through.
The Marilyn Mansons, the Ozzies.
Yeah, I mean, come on, kids are not watching movies or listening to music and saying, oh, that's a good idea, I'm going to go out and do that tomorrow.
Yeah, I can't wait for someone to shoot up a school and they go, he had Bruce Springsteen record on his turntable. I would love that. Why isn't that? It's always Marilyn Manson,
Well, there was one of these guys that did that. Like he blamed it on the Twinkies. Like he had 15 Twinkies before.
Oh, really?
He went out and
Oh, I
shot
love
people.
that.
I was like, sugar high Twinkies. Well, let's sue Twinkies.
Yeah, let's go
now.
after
Come
Twinkies
on.
are bad.
That's it. Twinkies have to be banned.
Yeah.
So how did you get started in comedy?
You know, I always wanted to be a musician. I'm a big metalhead. All my friends were in bands. I was a huge music fan, but I just didn't have an ear for music at all. I went for Couldn't play. I was a lefty, so nobody could teach me because they're like, "Oh, you got to turn."
Hendrix, come on.
Yeah, I know, but I mean,
Iommi, come on.
I wasn't friends with those guys. My friends were all guitar players, but they were righties. Like, look, I don't know. You turn the guitar around, it's weird, and so I couldn't do that. I went for singing lessons one time, and you know, they always want to take your money. The little local woman that teaches vocals in the town. After the first session, she goes, "Look, I don't want to steal your money. You don't have it at all." You just don't have an ear for music.
Oh, that was nice of her.
Yeah, it was nice.
In some ways.
It was, and but at least I tried it, you know. So and then, you know, just going to watch my friends and you know being up on stage and that whole thing. And David Lee Roth, I was, you know, as a kid, he was always so funny in interviews. And then I was seeing Twisted Sister in the clubs back in the day, and Dee Snider would do these raps, these funny raps, and I just, you know what, I'm going to go up on stage, man. That's what, you know, I wanted to be a performer somehow, whether if it wasn't a musician, then you know, a stand-up.
So were you a fan of comedy? I mean, obviously, you know, a big metalhead, but were you a fan of comedy at the same time?
Not real, not so. You know, I liked Richard Pryor. I remember seeing a couple of his movies, Live at the Sunset Strip in the movie theater.
Yeah.
And I loved Rodney Dangerfield. I just loved his, you know, his quick setup punch jokes. I love that. But then, you know, comedy was always corny to me. It was like these goofy white guys in khakis and bad sports jackets on TV doing these lame jokes. I was like, it's terrible. But then Sam Kinison came along and Andrew Dice Clay, and they brought like a rock and roll, you know, attitude towards comedy, and that's what I really gravitated to. When they were playing like arenas,
yeah,
I'm like, wow, comedians could be rock stars, and that's when I started doing stand-up.
Interesting. So it was really just the love of being on stage, and you couldn't figure out.
I couldn't figure out how.
You couldn't do it musically. So did it come naturally to do that, or,
no,
or was it a lot of work?
There was, you know, I also wanted to be a DJ, like a metal DJ, because I used to, you know, work on my college station, and then there was another station that hired me at nights. You could play whatever you wanted. Back in the day, so I would do like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I'd do a heavy metal show for 4 hours. I'd just bring my albums in and just play everything. Motorhead, they didn't even care. So I wanted to do that, but then it was like, you know, because if you're going to work at a real station, you can't bring Motorhead records in and play it. It's not going to happen, you know. You got to play this, and then talk for 5 seconds. And I just started writing jokes in between the songs and stuff, and then I saw Dice on stage, that first Dangerfield special when he did that 7 minutes.
Oh yeah.
I was with that leather jacket on, and then the HBO special. I'm like, that's what I want to do. It took me a little while to get out the balls to get up on stage, and once I did, I fell in love with it.
So you just then it kind of came naturally after you finally got up there, right?
Yeah, then it came naturally, and I bombed, you know, for a long time. I wasn't good, but most comedians say, "Oh, I killed the first night." No one
do they
ever
really?
Did. They always do, and I go, "Let me listen to that tape, and let's sit back and listen to it." You didn't, but I got a few laughs, and I just knew that's what I wanted to do.
Well, it's like a band doing their first demo, saying like, "Yeah, this demo's the greatest thing ever." You'll go back, and go, "Yeah, right."
Yeah, well, every comedian thinks they're going to be on HBO in the first year.
Yeah,
like everything they write is genius, and they can't cut anything down.
So, like music, I would think comedy is a very tough business. There's a lot of, you know, competition. It's difficult to get spots. Like, you know, how did you kind of get up and, you know, from going and doing a couple spots at a local thing, becoming more of a real comedian, I guess?
Yeah, well, it's totally tough, man. It's just, you know, it's basically like the music business too. You know, you're getting ripped off playing these awful gigs. You know, the club owner leaves and you don't get paid, and they didn't advertise, and they won't shut the TVs off, and it's just, you know, terrible. The mic doesn't work, all of that stuff, horror stories. But for some reason, you know, I had long hair when I first started. I looked like Coverdale, Bon Jovi. I grew up in that era, and you know, and that was the only way to get laid in the '80s, late '80s, or whatever like that. You had long hair, girls would just want to sleep with you, and you know, I had the mustache and a bad mullet for a long time and never got laid. And I started growing my hair long, and all of a sudden these girls were like all over me. I'm like, this is awesome. And I started doing stand-up, and I had the long hair. And after the show, like all these chicks would be hanging out with me, you know, because I had the hair and I was when it was in. And all the other comics that have been around for a long time, like guys like Rich Voss, Reverend Bob Levy, there's a bunch of guys, they were like, you got to be kidding me. They're like, dude, I'm going to take you on the road with me. You got to bring, because they wanted to get laid, but they couldn't get, you attract chicks. So they would, so I was working full time as a comic 6 months into my career, like 5-6 nights a week.
Wow.
Hey, I got this guy. He's just going to do 7 minutes up front, as the MC, and pay him $50. And I would drive these guys around, and then we'd try to get laid after the show. Girls would come up, and they would. So for some,
do you get hot chicks though at comedy shows?
Well, back in the day, they were like the hair metal chicks, the Jersey chicks with the high hair. Yeah. And Pennsylvania was always Pennsylvania was a big spot for us to do stand-up. It was a bunch of places, and they were like 5 years behind the hair metal scene. Like when
5 years. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So if you still had long hair in like '96, they still thought it was like '88 or '89, so you could still get laid with that. But it definitely affected my career because I was more into doing that and stuff. But still I got the stage time, which was good, which I needed in the beginning of my career. And then cut to I guess 4 years into my career, this comedian, because I had long hair and I was from New Jersey, so all the New York clubs didn't want anything to do with. Didn't think any guys from New Jersey were funny. Me and Jim Norton were good friends, trying to break into the clubs. They wanted nothing to do with us. But this one comedian, Rich Francesi, took a liking to me, and he was already established, was on MTV a couple times, and I was at a Christmas party for a comedy club, and he goes, I got to introduce this guy from MTV. It was Don Jamieson. Don worked for MTV at the time, booking a comedy show. He goes, hey man, this guy Jim, you should look at his comedy. He's really funny. And he's like, all right. And he goes, and my friend Rich goes, he's from New Jersey and he likes strippers and heavy metal. And James is like, really, you do? I'm like, yeah, what strip clubs? Like, we sat there for like 2 hours. He goes, all right, I want to go see you on Tuesday because there's a comedy show we're booking. He saw me Tuesday and booked me on the show, and that's when my career started.
What show was that?
It was MTV Kamikaze. It was like the half-hour comedy hour, but that came on after that. It was probably 94, 95.
Oh, wow.
And then he booked me on a spring break with Pauly Shore. Remember Pauly Shore used to be really big?
Yep.
I did stand-up on there, and then it slowly started taking off from there.
Nice. And now fast forward all the way till now. Now you've got this CD DVD package coming out. So this is basically, I guess, the last. How long did it take you to write all the material that's on this?
Probably about release? 2 years.
Oh wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, about two. Yeah, comics usually it takes a while to come up with a great 45 minutes to an hour.
I guess it's like writing an album kind of too for a band.
It is.
Right?
I mean, it's not easy. I mean, there's prolific guys out there like George Carlin. Every couple of years, they come up with another great album, and Chris Rock is probably like every 2 or 3 years. But it takes a while to really get a great set down that kills every night. You got to keep going out there and trying and tweaking and all that stuff. But yeah, it's probably about 2 years in the making. And
for comedians, I guess, like, bands, when they write songs and stuff, they go into rehearsal, a little room, and you rehearse, and you get ready to go out before you play it live. But can you do that as a comedian, or you just got to go out in front of the fans and the crowds and work it that way?
Yeah, you got to work. You can write it down, the idea, and kind of write it out, but you don't know if it's going to work till you get on that stage. And no matter, even Carlin, who was amazing and was a genius, could write something down and go, "This is going to be amazing," and go up on stage and get nothing. So you just never know. That's what's great about it. You can think of something during that day and go, "I got to try this on stage," and then it either does well or it just lays there, and you're like, "All right, well, I guess that wasn't funny."
And then you're going to cultivate that up until the crescendo of actually, recording the whole thing. And this recording, I mean, I saw some of it. Obviously, I thought it went really well. But you were happy with the way everything came out?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what you do is you build on it. Like there's one section on the CD about superstitions. Some guy was saying that he was knocking on wood or whatever, and I just started making fun of my friend. And I started talking about it on stage. I go, you know what? And it started working. I go, I'm going to go look into all these superstitions. So I started researching a bunch of them. So now it's a whole hunk. So it starts off with just one piece, and then you just kind of build it more and more, and then, and that's how I do my stand-up.
And luckily, you had a great heckler that you have some interesting footage of as well on this thing.
Oh yeah, because the heckler is, this drunk woman yelling out 3 minutes in my show, do crank anchors, special ed, do it. And I'm like, all right, well, yeah, okay. She's like, no, do it now. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do it later. No, come on, that's what everybody came here, do it now. And I'm like, I go, miss, that's like my hit single. I don't do it in the beginning of the show. I save it for the end. That's, I do it on the encore. Journey doesn't open with Don't Stop Believing, because then everybody would leave afterwards. I know where I need to do it, thank you, but I'm a professional. No, but do it. So it's a whole thing, and we have it on. It's on the DVD version. And I interview her afterwards, try to get into her mind why she was heckling.
And did you? So when you I guess people can see the DVD. I won't give it away, so they can see it there. So I was just gonna say do it now, but
what? Do what?
Crank anchors.
Oh, yeah, well, I tell the whole story of how I got the gig on Crank Anchors and how Eminem became a fan. And,
Is that all on the?
It's on the DVD part. I told it on
cool.
stage,
Awesome.
yeah, because Eminem, the show was basically on the verge of getting canceled, because nobody really knew it. And Eminem, for some reason, took a liking to the show, and he went on a music award show, and he started imitating my character.
No, wow,
and I'm like, and then all of a sudden they go, Comedy Central call, go, look, Eminem is a huge fan of the show, and he wants to do prank calls with you. He loves your stuff, so get on a plane tomorrow to Detroit and go do calls with him. And he goes, and this guy could really put this show on the map, so don't mess it up. So like all the pressure was on me, to keep the show going, because and then once he got on that show, it just went through the roof. Because then we did stuff for the music awards on MTV.
Yeah, it was a huge show. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel was on. Obviously, was
Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla. Yeah.
There's a lot of big.
But I think it was, I forget what, 2003 or 2004 music awards, the MTV Music Awards. Me and Eminem did a whole thing where I was special ed and I was bothering him at the podium and stuff. So it was really cool. And that and then all of a sudden I was like, what is this show? And then it just went through the roof for like the next 3 seasons.
Cool, nice. Well, you can see the actual thing October 25th. Cringe and Purge, Jim Florentine's masterful comic CD and DVD. So check that out in stores October 25th. And thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you.